Hello, friends. We're back again. It's Fightful Overbooked, and I have someone who challenged me.
I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. I'm so
As
desperately
you
sorry.
should be. Yeah. I brought my buddy Jeff Hawkins here to talk about some old school wrestling because I got the gauntlet thrown down.
Well, no, the thing was, well, you were upset about something. I go, well, if I really want to torture Joel, I'll have him watch NWA Bunkhouse Stampede 1988. And he goes, challenge accepted. I go, all right, let's talk about this. But no, it's an important show in the history. If you like the Royal Rumble, it's because of this show, and we'll get into the history of that in a moment. But your initial thoughts, I take it, are negative.
So on the show that I do every Wednesday and Sunday on the channel, we talk about Today Wrestling,
All right,
and my co-host Tim and I are more inclined to watch what's on today. And yeah, we have our opinions, but we discuss more the angles. We discuss more the uh, we don't talk about it in terms of like how it used to be. We'll talk about
right,
what's going on common day.
right.
When I go back and watch older stuff, it's when I watch 80s stuff, it doesn't always do it for me. Some of
Right.
the main
No, and
event caliber matches do, but a lot of like the undercard that I watched, especially this show, did not
here
go.
and in my defense, when I talk 80s wrestling, I'm usually cherry picking the best angles and the best things. And the problem
Yes.
and the thing was, the business then wasn't necessarily, it was television oriented, but it was television oriented to get you to go to a live show to watch the good stuff. So there's a lot of squash matches, there's a lot of filler, there's a lot of angles, but the promos were outstanding back then, and that's part of the problem. Uh let me give you some context about both the Bunkhouse Stampede and what's going on at this time in 1988. The Bunkhouse Stampede was brought in by Dusty Rhodes when he took over as booker for Jim Crockett Promotions in 1985, I want to say, or 1984, and then into 1985. At that time, Crockett was only running two events a year, two big events a year. The Great American Bash, which was usually a tour of things. There wasn't itself a Great American Bash. There was the Great American Bash on tour, which would be like a main event coming, a pay-per-view coming to each city in there. And there was Starcade.
Okay. Yeah.
And Starcade was the big end of the year spectacular when they'd blow off all the different angles and things like that. And so when Dusty came in, he goes, well, we need to start doing more. And one of his ideas was the Bunkhouse Stampede, which was, would you go to an arena and at the end of the night would be a battle royal, which were always popular, but it's a come as you are street fight battle royal, which is awesome when you think about it, especially with, guys would come and you saw it a little bit on this, you'd have your cutoff tanks, you'd have weight belts, gloved hands, bandanas all around, blue jeans with knee pads over them, which is always my jam. A couple guys would bring a hubcap. The Russians would bring their chain. The Road Warriors would occasionally bring their spikes.
Yep.
And everybody pretty much bled. And that was the selling point. You come in here, you got to see some guys bleed and beat each other up. Okay, great idea. Always happened after Starcade, always was in January. Come see the Bunkhouse Stampede when it comes to your area. And I got to see one in Norfolk. It was pretty darn cool.
Oh,
Dusty,
sweet.
of course, won.
It was the Dusty match.
It was.
Right?
Well, a couple years in, then they decided, well, let's have one bunkhouse final at the end that takes the winners of each individual Bunkhouse Stampede to have a super Bunkhouse Stampede, with a cowboy boot full of cash. Sounds like an awesome idea.
Yeah. So when they tossed that out there, I didn't know this, and they were like, it's for $500,000, and I'm like, okay, great, 88. That's a pretty neat amount of money.
Well, this is even before that. This is like in the 87 one. They just had they had a straight Bunkhouse Stampede Battle Royal final in the Omni.
Gotcha.
That they were building for.
Okay.
88, they decided to up their game. And let me lay the lay of the land here between Crockett and Vince, because Jim Crockett Promotions is now creeping northward and westward to try and build territory. They had Starcade in Chicago, and they beat the Road Warriors in Chicago, which was dumb.
Yeah, you don't do that.
You don't do that, but they've gotten a lot of the Eastern Seaboard. They've gotten above Maryland now. They've been playing Washington. They've been playing Philadelphia. They're very popular in Philadelphia, And there's a common place where both WWF and NWA can play, and that's the Nassau Coliseum in Uniondale, New York, because they would accept both people. So they decide, well, now also what happened, Starrcade 87 was on pay-per-view, but Vince McMahon, or no, Starrcade 87, Vince McMahon says if you play their Starrcade, you're not going to get WrestleMania the next year. Oh, and as a help, we're going to give you something here called the Survivor Series. So the Survivor Series was built to screw with Starrcade.
I remember that.
And this didn't face Crockett off. Crockett's all right, fine, especially Dusty, because Dusty, ladies, find yourself someone who loves you as much as Dusty loved Dusty, because Dusty just thought, you know what, I'll just put more of me on TV, baby, and that'll be it.
Hey, man,
so they decide,
that's all.
And this is still relatively young into pay-per-view. But really before then, it was the closed circuit stuff where you'd pay like $20 to go to the same arena, watch a screen that was put up, with a bad sound system, and to eat stale popcorn and to watch the event like you were there. It was dreadful, but pay-per-view made it cool, even though you could either dial on your phone or go down to your local cable company and get a special box to watch the pay-per-view. Which was a pain. You have to go to an office. Hey, I want to watch the wrestling. Can I do that? But they're unfazed. They decide, you know what? We're going to do this pay-per-view in January, and run it back there, and then they won't have time to plan. Well, guess who decides on January 28th, 1988? We need a special on USA TV. Why? Look at that. It's the WWF. And on that day, they decided, hey, you know what? We're having a real problem with this card. They really, if you read the Wikipedia angle on the Royal Rumble, it really kind of, they were looking, they didn't have any ideas. And then all of a sudden, Dick Ebersol looked down upon them and said, why don't you try that timed battle royal idea you had? And thus the Royal Rumble was, they were going to do a battle royal of some kind on this show to counteract the Bunkhouse Stampede. But for this Bunkhouse Stampede finale, they decided we're going to make the stakes even higher. What we're going to do is we're going to do a battle royal where you can anything goes and bring any weapons, and we're going to do it in a cage. 14-year-old me thought this was the greatest idea in the world because,
of course, everything's going to go wrong.
Yeah. And there's two ways you can eliminate people. You can eliminate them through the door or over the top of the cage, and you're going, there's going to be some people getting hurt. You don't know that this is a work. You're just like, violence. This is what young teenage Jeff Hawkins wants, is more violence. And then you watch it, and you realize the folly of having a battle royal in a cage means you have to find dumb ways for people to climb the cage.
And that's then, I'm sitting and watching it, and I'm just like, why is no one climbing the cage?
Yes.
Why is this so difficult? And why can't we get the eliminations out of the way, or at least start something? Yeah, it was driving me nuts. Continue.
So we're gonna have this card. We're gonna have it in Uniondale, New York. Not Greensboro, not Atlanta, not even Norfolk. Just my home area. Yeah, we're gonna have it in Uniondale, New York. Okay, great. It's gonna be a pay-per-view. Okay, great. Tickets say ring time 7:30. Turns out time to start was 6:30.
What?
So the live crowd was getting there late, and they were pissed. That's why during the opening match between Bobby Eaton and Nikita Kolov, it's still 3/4 empty because
I was watching the match, and I'm just like, why is this so dead? And why am I not enjoying this? There was no crowd.
This would happen a couple of times. This happened in Starrcade 89 Future Shock as well. They announced the time as I think they announced the time as 8, and it started at 7. And so people were still filing in or trying to get to the arena after work when it started, because that was on like a Thursday night. This is at least, I believe, on a Saturday, I want to say.
But how do you mess up a time that bad? Was this like a time change thing because they're coming from the Midwest?
It was a miscommunication between the arena and the schedule. So when the arena printed up the tickets, it said bell time 7:30, and it turned out bell time was 6:30.
Oh
And
god.
everybody was looking at their tickets, and there was no internet then to
Yeah, he
correct
couldn't
it and
just
things like
yeah,
that.
there was no way to get to people. He couldn't put it you could the
Unless
best you
you
could do is
knew
put an ad in the paper.
unless you knew the time the show was supposed to start on pay-per-view, and not a lot of places were running it because, again, Vince was also putting on pressure about WrestleMania. If you want WrestleMania, you need to do this.
Yeah.
They didn't know. So yes, people got to the arena and they had missed a dark match between the Sheep Herders and Jimmy Garvin and Sting. And then they were coming in during Eaton and Kolov. They missed. I believe they probably were. If you're coming in on time, you're probably coming in just in time for Flair and Hawk. Here, you probably missed Zbyszko and Wyndham as well.
There were definitely more people there for Zbyszko and Wyndham when I was watching. Like I saw the crowd start to fill in, and I also saw people actually react, especially to the end of that match, which I really like the end of that match, by the way. I just like the use of Baby Doll's heels and like hide in the way that Zbyszko hides it perfectly out of view. Like stuff like that works for me. And I saw the crowd react. So maybe they had started getting more into the venue because that match also went almost 20 minutes as well. So you gotta wonder if we were getting closer to a full house. But you're right. By the time they got to the main event, to the world title match with Flair and Hawk, that filled in. People were loud for that.
Yeah, and one of the like, if you watch this show and you hate screw jobs and professional wrestling from week to week,
don't watch.
you're gonna get mad at this because this is a special event. This is a pay-per-view where you think the things are gonna be clean, but no, Dusty went for heat on this one. So you have time limit draw, screw job, heel pin due to interference, and also disqualification due to interference. So you start off with a pretty decent couple of wrestlers. I mean, at least Bobby Eaton versus Nikita Kolov. The way I can describe Nikita Kolov is think Roman Reigns right after the Shield broke up. That's about the level that Nikita Kolov was at this time. He had been turned babyface to replace Magnum TA, who had been crippled in a car accident. And he was turned face because of Glasnost, and he was teamed with Dusty Rhodes as the superpowers and getting this big baby face. And this was basically your basic mid-card feud. And this is how they do feud sometimes is you'd have the mid-card belt guy wrestling against tag team wrestlers because tag team wrestlers are more naturally aren't as good as singles as they are in a team. That's how stories like this work. But this was just a long match. For me, I love Bobby Eaton to death, but boy, working the arm.
Yes.
And you didn't get to see a lot of the high flying Bobby Eaton.
No, he does one missile drop kick from a top rope,
and that's
about it.
Yeah, so I can imagine Joel watching this and going, "Yeah, we're off to a rollicking start right now."
And like, I listen, like there's a bit of heat at the beginning where like Cornette is hugging Eaton and getting booed for it. Like they're in New York and. I get it. It's a different place compared to where they normally run, but
different place in time.
Yeah, different place in time. But also, like, if Kolov was this Soviet Union representative, why was he being cheered so heavily?
Oh, because he got turned. He got, like I said, he got turned by Dusty when Magnum went down.
Oh, okay.
And was crippled.
But he's still playing off as someone from the Soviet Union.
Yes, but he's part of the Gorbachev Soviet Union now. He's embracing more Western values now.
Okay, yeah,
which is part of the story. He's a reformed Russian, while his evil uncle Ivan, who's in the main event, is still full on Ruski as opposed to him.
I understand.
I believe he was also like I think he was like hailed from Belarus or one of the Soviet republics that tried to break away just to try and help such things, with Glasnost. But yeah, no, he was teamed with Dusty Rhodes and they were the superpowers, US and USSR team.
Of course.
This is around the time of Rocky IV. It's just all of that, And so this, and he was a perfectly decent mid-card champion, Nikita. He had been in the main event, I believe, the year before at Starrcade against Ric Flair when he was still a heel.
Mm-hmm.
He was originally supposed to be part of Demolition. Vince tried to get Nikita to come up there, and he said no, thank you. Nikita took some time off, came back. Noticeably, when his wife died, he had noticeably shrunk by then. Wasn't as much on the gas as he used to be. You know, he had a couple of runs in WCW. He was always solid. One wonders what would have happened if he hadn't have left the business for a few years, or even if he had gone to WWF for a while, because Vince probably would have turned him into some kind of character and would have done something with him, maybe in a tag team, maybe singles. But had you seen any of Nikita Koloff before this?
Years ago. I
Okay.
not to the point where I could tell you, how many matches I've seen of his, but like I was somewhat familiar with the work.
The Roman Reigns push is what he would get a lot. You
Yeah.
know, he's not going to be
Yeah.
in there more than 2 minutes. He's going to kill a guy. He's going to look
Yeah.
good doing it. And then you'll put him in with Flair, who could carry him to a match.
Right. So like in my notes from when I was watching, like there was like a slugfest finish as we're getting to the last few minutes, and like doing the big punches in the corner, and the crowd is into it. Koloff hits that big lariat, but then he loses time because he sold too long. He waited way too long to go for any pin, and he lost complete track of time. And then afterwards, they have Stan Lane come in and beat down Koloff along with Eaton and Cornette. But then Koloff has no friends. Like no one comes out to even try. Like they're trying to build the heat
Right.
with Corny Lane and Eaton, and it's not doing it for me.
Yeah, you were kind of expecting Dusty to come out and save him. But
At least someone to represent Dusty, a friend of Dusty, because you don't want to send out Dusty if he's going to be in the main event and yada yada yada, as it is at the time. But then again, more Dusty. I think I expected more, but they did nothing. They didn't do anything at the time. They just kind of let it play out, and it didn't play out well.
And then Joel, you were exposed to one of the finest pieces of comedy ever put together, the Western States Heritage title.
What is this title?
It is a created title,
of course,
specifically for Barry Windham by Dusty Rhodes, because Barry Windham is the heir apparent to Dusty, supposedly. He's the son of Blackjack Mulligan, but he had always liked Barry. Barry had been in the NWA at least once before this, before he went up to the WWF to team with Mike Rotunda as that team. He had gotten a main event push. They had shown him pinning Harley Race on TV, and Dusty being the guy to give him a Corvette and everything like that. But and plus with the westward expansion, he wasn't going to be national champion because we were using the secondary belt really for Nikita right now. And the TV belt, was floating around. I believe, I want to say Tully had it at this time. Tully or Arn had it at this time, I think. So we need another belt. We're expanding westward. Don Owen still is running the Portland territory. So when we go to the West Coast, we need a belt to defend. And that's going to be Barry Windham. And who do we put him in against? Larry Zbyszko, who is on one of his sojourns south to the NWA prior to marrying Greg Gagne's daughter.
Exactly.
And going back to the AWA, the soft confines where he'd be a king. But, at this time I believe this was after his first run with Gary Hart and Al Perez as a team here. Maybe it's the same year. I might be misremembering things. Apologies if I do, but Zbyszko's always been Zbyszko. Always trying to grow the mullet, always stalling, always yelling and complaining, always doing that weird spin kick that I just absolutely love. And now he's teamed with Baby Doll, which is an interesting pair because Baby Doll had been around the NWA for years. First as Tully Blanchard second, and then seconding Dusty. And now she's turned bad again after coming back. And she was seconding the Midnight Express for a while after Cornette blew out his knee, sorry. And then stayed around because she was in Dusty's good graces still, even though she was married to Sam Houston. And she's now with the heel Larry Zbyszko, and they made an interesting team, I thought. I always look, Baby Doll and Tully were fantastic. Nicola Roberts is fantastic in her role as Baby Doll. If you watch 85, 86 builds and stuff like that, she can take a bump. She does take bumps from men. They use that for heat a lot. Dusty elbowing her and then having to apologize later would never fly in today's day and age, probably, unless you're doing intergender stuff. But with Zbyszko, it was a little bit of a different dynamic, but it's kind of a similar dynamic to Tully Blanchard, who is also a bratty type wrestler. But this was also slow. I mean,
Yes.
admittedly slow.
Yeah.
But you did get to see some of Barry's greatness here. I mean, when he hits those ropes, man, I don't think I've seen anybody of that size hit the ropes like he does and
Mhm.
get a spring off of them for a lariat as he did.
Yes.
Obviously had
Yes.
agility, obviously could throw a mean drop kick at he's I want to say 6'9". I mean, and with the small ring and using the cables, that ring really made him look like a million bucks, and you could see why he had star power here.
Yeah, and then going back and watching the match, like you said, it was slow, it was plodding, but those moments where Wyndham is going and going as he was,
Yeah,
like it was there were some memorable moments. And
he's
again,
one
I
of the
made
best. He's
reference.
one of the best wrestlers of that era, and it's a shame that
Yeah,
things
yeah.
happen as they did. But
Yeah. So I'm going through the match and like I said, I'm not super enjoying it, but when we got towards the finish, I personally enjoyed the way it was laid out. I like the baby doll fake 3 when the ref is out. Like I
yep,
thought stuff like that was really neat. And then we get to the stiletto spot and then the cover and Zbyszko wins the Western States Championship. That and I was like, okay, sure. I don't know. I obviously don't know what happens from here, but in the moment, I'm just like, okay, this works in the confines of the match just to finish me.
yeah. Well, what happens from here is Wyndham actually starts teaming with Luger, who had just
Sure.
turned on the Horsemen, and we get it. Well, it's also part of history because they ran the Royal Rumble up against this show. Jim Crockett decides, you know what? For your little WrestleMania show over there, I'm going to run a free show called Clash of the Champions.
Yes. Yeah, I did know that.
And so at Clash of the Champions, it was Wyndham and Luger taking on Tully and Arn for the tag team titles. And that's where they'd go because Luger was looking to get revenge on the Horsemen from here. Now I think that this match would have been better remembered. It's never going to be remembered as a classic, but if you had have done pretty much the same ending for what might be the worst Ric Flair Hawk match I've seen.
Yeah.
Like
What
they
were we
had a
doing?
great one in Philly for the Bash Tour, I thought, but this one to me underdelivered in many, many ways. I mean,
Yep.
you had the standard Hawk not selling spot and Ric Flair. This was Ric Flair at 50% speed and
Yes.
50%
Yep.
acting and 50% antics and things like that. I don't know if he had a rough night the night before. Hawk wasn't really doing all that much to me.
No,
To be honest with you.
which I kind of expected. Hawkins singles like this wasn't really like it wasn't his forte, but also it wasn't. I don't know. Maybe the chemistry wasn't there. Maybe they went too hard. The
It
night
just might have
before,
been a bad
right?
night, but I mean, they have
Yeah,
good chemistry because I mean, they'd work the Horsemen a lot.
that's a
So
good point. Yeah, but again, like if we're working the Horsemen, you're
then
working
again, Hawk was never a
tags.
technical specialist. He was,
No,
get his power moves and get in there. And yeah,
yeah,
more used to doing tag team matches.
yeah.
Quite still at this point.
I like the little story that they had with like
Yeah,
JJ was afraid to be anywhere near Hawk, like he was running away at every opportunity, and yeah, it was a traditional Ric Flair, begging off and then doing little heel things. The eye poke doesn't work, it's no sold. So what does he do? He goes to low blow him, and that works, but it becomes a rest spot. And I'm like, wait a minute, why are we just sitting here? This isn't what we should do.
right.
Yeah, not that I'm expecting Flair to suddenly Hulk up and beat the shit out of Hawk. No,
No.
but like
But you
do
expect a
something.
certain,
You build
I
the
mean, you expect
heat.
a certain attempt at doing like heat and getting like chops on Hawk and
Yeah,
working over the leg,
yeah,
like you'd see almost in '89 Flair when Flair was taking on like the steamboats of the world. That
right.
kind of Flair is what you were expecting here.
Yeah, I was expecting Flair to at least get up and start dropping knees, right?
Yes.
Do the knee in the roll that like
Yeah.
you always do, but instead he doesn't. He's just on the floor and he's tired, he's out, and like the crowd is going nuts because it's Flair and because it's Hawk, and
Yeah, and they love
there's a
both
star
of them.
power
I mean,
there.
this
Yeah,
crowd loves both those guys. But this match just didn't give them what they
it
wanted.
yeah,
And you
no.
get the usual JJ shenanigans at the end and Ellering help. And that would have been fine if you hadn't just done a screw job finish on the last match.
Yeah, exactly. And so they do the chair spot, and Flair gets himself obviously like a flagrant DQ finish. And at that point, I'm just like, well, that was just dog
But the
shit.
thing about that, but here's the thinking. Okay,
Okay.
Zbyszko gets the heat against Dusty's boy, Wyndham. Flair gets the heat against fan favorite Hawk. So people
Okay.
are angry and angry and angry, and they want to release and they want to be able to cheer for somebody. And who's going to win the Bunkhouse Stampede finals?
Yeah.
Oh, look at there. It's Dusty Rhodes. who's gonna get this windfall of love supposedly for winning this match. And yeah, as we get into it, there were issues here too. Two people who had won battle royals in the lead up to this were not in the match inexplicably. Steve Dr. Death Williams and Big Bubba Rogers, aka the Ray Trailer, aka the man who would be known as the Big Boss Man up north. I believe, I don't know why this was. Maybe there was a UWF house show somewhere, although Sting was on this show too. I was gonna say, the merger had still happened at this point, but yeah. So you have it's not the worst lineup in the world. Let me get the exact list here for you. It's
I got it here.
Okay, I have it too.
I got Arn Anderson, Lex Luger, Animal, Barbarian, Warlord, Ivan Kolov, Tully, and Dusty.
Yeah, it's about half great workers and half jacked up dudes.
Yeah, good mix there.
Yeah, and the thing about this match, which the big angle going to this match was that Arn and Tully had already won at least one had won multiple bunkhouse matches, I think, and one had not. Or no, Lex had won and he was still a horseman at the time. And JJ Dillon was entered in a bunkhouse stampede. And so the final four in this bunkhouse stampede were Arn, Tully, Lex, and JJ. And JJ, being a geek manager, goes, "Oh, guys, you know what? I've never won one of these things. And it would really, it would give me, I could be in the finals," which sounds ridiculous, but it would really mean a lot to my career and my legacy if I could say that I was a bunkhouse stampede winner. So, Arn, sure thing, jumps over the top rope. Tully, sure, anything for you, JJ. You've led us all these years, blah, blah, blah. Go over the top rope. Luger refuses. Out of a sense of, no, this is every man for himself. This is professional wrestling. This hurts the integrity of the battle royal. I'm not going to do it.
If there's one thing Lex Luger knows about, it's the integrity of professional wrestling. That's right.
He had turned 30 times. This is only the first turn he had done.
Right. He's early in his days.
Yes, this is early. He might have turned 4 times during this battle royal. Who knows? But yeah, so he goes no, throws JJ out, gets a big pop. Arn and Tully are flabbergasted, go in there, start the beat down, he gets saved by the baby faces at one point, even though they don't trust him, but they do save him and run the horseman out. And this is the beginning of babyface Lex Luger. Okay, great. So now Dusty has a friend in there as opposed to just all heels. Because you notice this lineup, it's all heels.
All heels.
If you keep Luger a heel, except for Dusty Rhodes, which is perfect for Dusty, but you have to have somebody have an excuse to beat up somebody else.
Yes, exactly.
So this match starts, and it's 15 minutes before there's the first elimination, which is realistic, but also preposterous in many ways.
So I get to that, and it's Warlord Barbarian, and they get rid of Ivan Kolov, and I like the elimination. Like, I really enjoyed they had him over the top of the cage.
Yeah, Ivan Kolov was thought of as a weak link in Paul Jones' army at the time.
Yeah. Yes.
And he was getting phased out of Crockett due to age as well. So yes, this was how they established the quote unquote powers of pain as a dominant force in Paul Jones' army and got rid of Ivan Kolov.
Yeah. So he's out, and then we keep going. It was at this point, I'm just like, okay, now this has to pick up, right? And it kind of does. I mean, you got Tully eliminates Warlord.
Yeah.
Right. I forget how. How does he get him? You remember?
Through the door.
Is it just straight out, eh?
Yeah, just straight out there. I can't remember all these eliminations.
That's fine. And then he gets Animal as well. And then Arn, Lex, and Tully.
Oh no, I think Warlord went over the top too. I think it was one of those things and they were all on like the turnbuckles and stuff, and somehow
you're probably right.
Warlord just climbed over and then hit him down, and things like that. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter how people got eliminated. It was preposterous how all these people were getting eliminated. I mean, Dusty and the Barbarian are just kind of hanging out during this entire time.
They're just going back and forth, and then we get down to it in the Barbarian, and guess who wins?
And I love the Barbarian. Don't get me wrong. I do. The Barbarian is one of those guys who you watch his body of work over time, and
Yeah.
he's never gonna be a work rate freak. He got trashed for ruining Ron Simmons' WCW title run because the first title match on a pay-per-view was against the Barbarian, who was still a mid-card guy. But you watch his squashes, you watch that run with the power with the what was the name of this team with Ming?
Wasn't no, it's not the Powers of Pain.
Not the Powers of Pain.
No.
It was
Oh my god, they're screaming at us
I
on
know
the
they
internet
are,
right
and
now.
I can't remember it, but you watch those even in the mid '90s. Oh,
Yeah.
Faces of Fear. Faces of Fear
Faces of
was
Fear. I
the
was gonna say, I
which
was
is
like,
a sneaky good team. When you
yes.
think, I mean, much better than the Warlord team that he was known of. They tried to turn those two into
It's like
WWS Road Warriors, but they couldn't.
I'm seeing Jimmy Hart as like walking them down the ring at
Yeah.
the moment. It's like, I know who's yelling. What's he yelling? Faces of
Well,
Fear.
a sneaky fun time to watch is that those 95 Nitros in the first
Yes.
hour where
Mhm.
they're bringing back all these great tag teams like the Fantastics and the Rock and Roll Express and Marty Jannetty to work with them, and it's like one of those cool, I think Paul Diamond and Pat Tanaka end up against them at one point too, which is great. It's
Just
just
to go
it's just
down.
one of those Jeff Hawkins, all my teams in one place. It's so great to watch this type of thing. Instead of fighting the Horsemen get eliminated by Dusty, of course, but the final boss is the Barbarian for some reason. And even though he's not a few, but he's a monster heel. They're doing kind of the Hogan push with Dusty here. And he goes out, and of course, Dusty wins to the delight of everybody, except people who were sick of Dusty Rhodes, like
Right.
most people. In retrospect, at this time the next year, most of these people are gone from the company,
Mm-hmm.
which really, including Dusty, which makes it, or I think Dusty I forget when he jumps, but no, Tully and Arn would be gone by the end of the year. The Powers of Pain leave because Dusty wanted them to do another scaffold match, and they go, "You're nuts! That thing's too high. I'm not doing it." So they
I
walk.
remember that story. Yeah.
JJ Dillon's gone to work in the front office over at the WWF. Barry Windham leaves to be the short-lived. I believe this was the Widowmaker at this time, or the Stalker. I can't remember which one of those two gimmicks it was, but it died on the vine real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Kolov, I think, is still there because I think he does he does that Tower of Doom thing because he brings in the Russian assassins to make good with Paul Jones. Ray Traylor's gone by then.
Yep.
Dr. Death spends a little bit of time in the company, but he goes to Japan afterwards. It doesn't and is back and forth. Zabisco's gone. The Midnight Express stay for a while, but leave for a little bit in '89 when they bring in Paulie Dangerously. So this thing is just a it's a death knell for the company for the most part, even though Clash of the Champions, very successful for the company. But Dusty
Yeah.
starts to wear on people, and especially started to wear on Tully Blanchard, who really was the guy making a stink behind the scenes on things. And I think, Dusty wanted to put over Dusty, and Dusty also didn't care how badly other people got hurt doing these things that Dusty was thinking of. So while it is important in wrestling history, it's also just a sad indicator of things to come later. If you were a fan of NWA like I was, because you didn't want to see your favorites go to Vince and be turned into these kiddie cartoon type wrestlers. You want to see real men bleeding and fighting each other.
Right.
Which this
That's what
was.
it was. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
this was a lot of bleeding, and not very good. The picture of the Warlord coming out like a Gold's Gym tank just makes me laugh every day. I'm like, yeah, that's the Warlord, all right, okay.
Yeah, just a bunch of guys out of their traditional garb, like coming out and being like, "I'm gonna beat the shit out of each other." And it was. I know we make the joke like when men were men, but like that's really what we got coming
Yes.
into this match, and that
Well,
wasn't so bad.
Yeah, when it was still a carny business, and if you saw a wrestler on the street, you'd be scared to death to talk to them because you'd be afraid they'd punch you in the face.
Exactly, because they were just ornery old carnies.
Ornery carnies who drank a lot. That's all I ever wanted out of my wrestler. Sure.
Now I know. That's how I got Jeff every time. Ornery old wrestlers.
Oh, jeez. Yes.
Okay, so I'm on Cage Match. This has got a ranking. Do you know the ranking? Have you seen it?
I have not seen it. Do you want me to guess it?
Take a guess.
What's the scale? 1 to 10?
Out of 10, yeah.
3.1.
No, it's higher.
What? Well, that's
Yes.
not too bad then. Okay.
4.87.
4.87. It's almost average.
Most people have ranked it at 5. There's 29 people who have rated the show.
It's not the worst show in the world. It's just if you were used to watching if you're used to like AEW or indie wrestling, it's gonna be at a snail's pace for you.
Right. And for me, like I said, some matches were fine. Others were nothing blew my socks off. Finishes, some of the finishes were cool, but otherwise I'm just kind of like, why are we doing this? And it's not going to deter me from going back and watching other old stuff. Like I'm going to go out and search other stuff.
Next show you get to pick, so you get to torture me. You know that, right?
Great. I mean,
I'm gonna allow that to happen. I'll tell you, my blind spot is like 2000 to 2005 wrestling.
Oh my god, that's perfect. I mean, okay. I did Battle Bowl. What I did was it Battle Bowl?
Oh god, you did a Battle Bowl?
I think Rob and I did it for Select.
I went to a Battle Bowl live.
It was not great. I think it was 91.
Yeah, that's the one I went to live. I think the one in Norfolk.
So
yeah.
Go back. You can
the
listen
one that
to
starts
Rob
off with the Japanese women tag team. I think.
I don't think it was that one.
Okay, never mind then, because that match slapped. I thought those two got people on their feet for that one, but it was the Starcade Battle Bowl is the one I went to.
So Starcade 91 Lethal Lottery Battle Bowl.
Okay.
That's the one that we did. We did that for Select, and we had a lot of feelings about that show. If you go back, if you're a Fightful Select subscriber, you can go back and find that. Rob Wilkins and I. Rob Wilkins is on this channel, by the way. Has coexisting with Maggie. Anyway, this was fun. Jeff, we're gonna do it again. This is good
and you will have to return the favor of me having to watch a bad show, probably. I think
I can always do that. You know what? In the comments, I want some people to put in some shows that Jeff and I should talk about, good or bad. I mean, preferably bad, so that
I'll tell you blind spots in my wrestling fandom. Like I don't know a lot of Ring of Honor.
Okay,
I don't know. You know, TNA's kind of there, although I did go to Bound for Glory 2011. I think
I went to Bound for Glory 2017.
Okay,
and then a couple. Whenever they came to Toronto, I would go.
I'd prefer on the older side, you know,
that's fair.
You could always do AWA Super Clash. I don't know if anybody ever wants to sit through AWA Super Clash.
They did the Super Clash thing, so if people are just going for like the shitty, I think Sean did one.
At least have some entertainment value in the show. Don't give us a bad show because it's a bad show, because this wasn't a terrible show. It was just a little dull.
Exactly. Yeah, like we still found what to talk about, and we found some good and bad out of it. So don't tell us like, oh, you got to go watch, you know, December to Dismember 2008, because we ain't touching that shit. That was a bad pay-per-view all around.
I almost gave you Future Shock, which I just recently rewatched, and nobody should ever rewatch that one. It was a good idea, but poorly executed.
Yeah, not doing that one.
No.
All right, Jeff, let's get out of here. Where can the people find you on the internet?
At Crap Game 13, as it says on there. I host a show called Shake Them Ropes. You can follow just the show, L, one word. We do a kind of a lazy river of wrestling criticism, just with the news and anything we watched on TV or any old stuff Jeff watched. You know, it's a me show pretty much. I'm also over at Fight Game Media right after Dynamite, doing the Dynamite show with Paul Fontaine, all hot takes on just the 2 hours of Dynamite, if that's more your speed and that's more of what you want to listen to me do. And then hopefully more shows here on Fightful Overbooked. I love this gimmick.
Hell yeah. I'm at Joel Pearl, JoelPearl. Drop us a like, drop us a comment. You know where to find us. New content is here daily. Ladies, gentlemen, friends beyond the binary, we'll see you in the next video.